So, hello, beautiful. Today I'm here with the wonderful Andrea. Welcome, my dear. I'm so happy to have you. And I'm really excited for this because when we talked before, you mentioned the work you do with not only the inner child, but the inner teenager. And that's something that I've never come across before, which really means something because I'm like deeply working into the spiritual stuff for almost 2 decades. So I would love, love, love to start this episode for you to like share on that. So that we can have a bit of a like basic knowledge about the work you do.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I am very passionate about my work. I am currently assisting on a online group for teenager healing, and it's continuing the work with the inner child, which is so spectacular, and I think it's underrated and much needed. And I see working with people, I see sides of themselves that are so rarely seen, and it's a surprise for everybody. And the inner child contains all our essence, so our joy, our courage, our sensitivity, our intuition, the perfection we're all seeking. And then when we pass into teenager, because the bridge is, for some people, it's very, very abrupt,
Yes.
and for some people, it's smoother. But in teenager, you have all the energy that's suppressed, and it turns into revenge. And that revenge is most often turned on yourself, on themselves. And it's so painful because the teenager is the highest potential you'll ever reach. So the highest sexual potential, the highest energetic potential is, well, you can do it all. But then you encounter boundaries and you hit on them and you get told no. And you get the pressure of the world to perform a certain way, meaning I want to be a rock star. I want to save the world. And the parents say, yeah, but there is no money in that. Go be a doctor. Go be a lawyer. And there is a lot of resentment there. And the revenge is turned inwards. And we kill part of ourselves without knowing. And years later, now we are working with adults, they say, wow, I wanted to do that and I couldn't. But what is my life? What kind of life am I living? And it's a bit sad to see, but so rewarding when they find those pieces of themselves. And it's like mirrors. So you have the inner child, the inner teenager, and then the adult. And you see that the inner child and the inner teenager are connected. They speak kind of the same language because they go outward, they want to do things, and they think the world is their oyster, just going outward and fulfilling and wanting and creating. And then the other, who is that? Or how do we go from this to that? And there's the disconnect there that gets reconnected slowly. It's so rewarding.
Mm. I imagine. And like when we talked about that last time, it opened doors for me because I thought like suddenly things made sense that haven't before. Like as a child, like you're so full of creative energy and also courage and love for yourself. And then you become a teenager. And like you said, it's kind of this revenge thing where nobody knows where up and down is, where left and right. It's just a disconnect of all sorts. So this closing these gaps, and then like I would love to have you answer if you think it is logic that is like disconnecting the child and the teenager from the adult, or what it is like that is like hindering this creative, courageous, like soulful essence that the younger versions of ourselves have, but then suddenly like the adult doesn't. Is it like this, oh, there's no money in it, it's you need to do like a thing that is logically explainable or that like fits into your CV? Is it that kind of thing, or what is your taking on where's the disconnect?
The first disconnect comes with childhood wounds. There are several wounds, and those wounds actually show up on our bodies. So the way we look right now shows, if you are aware of it, which childhood wound you have. And that's the first disconnect, because children are immersed in the world. So they then, starting from when they're born, they don't have a sense of self. So they are enmeshed with the mother, and then they slowly separate. The first cut is when the golden age, the emerging energy that connects very deeply with the mother stops. And that usually when, the postpartum depression sets in, because the oxytocin level, it's a chemical process, the oxytocin level drop. So there is a disconnect. So the child is on themselves, alone. And the mother suffers that, the child goes through that. And then, instead of bonding, you get all sorts of attachments. So that's the first disconnect. Then there are certain wounds that the child has. That's abandonment, that's humiliation, all sorts. But the child still feels. So let's say you enter, there's a beautiful meditation that we do in this course. You go into the house, for instance, and you meet your mother, and you see your mother, and she's beautiful. She's all dolled up, elegant, dressed to impress, and she's smiling, and she's saying, well, I'm so good, and I'm so proud of you. And in reality, she feels lonely, and she wants to do something else. Instead of being home in the kitchen talking to you, she wants to go be on the stage and sing the piano. I don't know. And you feel that. And there is this question that it is disconnect inside the child's energy. Said, I am seeing something, and my mother is telling me something, but in reality, I feel something else, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates disconnection. And you didn't know, and you believe it. You believe your mother. But that energy that goes into, but I want my mother to feel really okay. So you go and save her because you feel she's not okay. So you put yourself aside. It doesn't matter what you want, because the instinct to save her is more powerful. So we go that way. And what does the child do? The mother is upset. You know what the child is feeling right now. Maybe I want to play. But mom says, because she's okay, we're going out and do something she wants. So that is one of the first moments we put ourselves aside. We don't tell her that I need to play. I want to play. This is important to me. So we go, because our sense of self is not fully there yet. We go and say, Mom, we don't say it. We feel it and we go for it, because that's what children do. Mom, I want to save you, so let me play the clown for you. Let me be the perfect little girl. My example. Let me be the perfect little girl that is always dressed to the nines, that always gets good grades, that never say what says what she means, because it might be upsetting, and always do what she's told. And I let myself, I don't know who I am, I don't know what I want, but I know I am the perfect girl, and that makes my mother happy. That's one example.
Yeah.
A lot of things can happen. This is really the disconnect. And we lose sight of what we want. Because in what we want, there's our energy. And our full energy, our creative energy, our essence, goes into stifling that. My need to play, my need to draw, my need to speak up, because I am not okay with what's going on. I am not okay with this health oppressive atmosphere. You guys are crazy. You are fighting like crazy. I just want you to stop. The child never says that. So that disconnect on top of disconnect on top of disconnect, lie on top of lie, and we create a personality that's built to appease others. Because in reality, nobody's the perfect.
Yeah.
And it took me years, my personal example, it took me years to find my own voice. And to say to my mother, I don't want that. I really don't want that. I don't think that's good for me. Even now, when she says something, my first instinct is to say, yes, of course, you're right. And then I remember, right? So that, okay, I'm an adult. No. In simple things as arranging carpets. I want the green one here and the blue one here. And she mixed them. I said, no. Well, I want a cup that's green and she wants a cup that's red. We had a negotiation for a cup that's blue. Where, but very, very simple things. And you don't know. It's very hard to identify the things that makes you mama's girl instead of being me.
Mhm.
Who is me?
Mhm. That is
And
so
that's
powerful.
so powerful when you go back and you take those programs and patterns and I don't know who I am, but that's okay. I'm rediscovering it. And there's an adult now because I have adult energy. You cannot do these courses unless you are an adult. The adult now can support the child, and the child is disoriented and afraid, and the adult says, "Yeah, but I'm here." So lean on me rather than going to your parents and copying them or going against them. And as a teenager, there are always two ways. You either become like your parents or go against them. But always there is a standard because either you become them or against them, the standard is them, not you. So who are you? That's the big questions that gets asked in these formative years because from birth to the end of teenager, you form your personality. And if you are always like them or against them, who are you?
Mm. Wow. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for sharing. There are like a million questions that have popped up. And like, I think the first one I want to touch on is what you describe with this disconnection very beautifully is just like, who am I? I want to please my parents because I see like that their communication and what the energy tells me isn't matching. So for me, that sounded like that there was this like really red flag going on. It said like, oh, the start of people pleasing in the way we now, maybe as adults, certainly I have had a struggle with to see like, what can I do if I don't even know who I am, like you said before, like not only saying yes for the sake of saying yes, and then maybe realizing a week, a month, or a year later, oh, that's actually not what I wanted to do. Oh, I could have said no. But what did I really want? Because if there's no identity of the self, if you don't really know who you are, how can you find out what you want? So I feel like for all of the listeners who raise their hand on people pleasing to a various degree, this is really important. And I know from my client that there's so many of us who have that. So what I want to touch on, because if you're a parent and you're listening to this, you might think like, oh my God, how can I ever speak to my child in a way that there's no disconnection? Because parents too, like, of course, have needs, and sometimes they're overwhelmed, and sometimes like maybe they're not acting the way they'd like. But like, what would you say? What would be like a way to, or a goal to achieve as a parent to act in a situation like this? Your child wants to play, you need to go out. To have a tangible example, you're like kind of overwhelmed already. How to honor both of these needs, both of these energies, so that the disconnect is not happening?
The easiest and another passion of mine is working with the body. So the body is the witness. It never lies. So forget the lie. That's the easiest way to do it. Don't lie to yourself first. If you're all overwhelmed, say you're overwhelmed. It's a feeling anyway. The child knows. So it's not like you go face the child and say, mom is fine when you're
It's really not.
really overwhelmed. So you for those of you who are parents, I have not a parent, but I raised my niece. I saw her grow up, and it was a beautiful moment. So I took her on a trip. I went for 2 days, and when we turned back home, her mother was, "Hey, did you like it?" She was like, "Yes. Do you want to go and push it?" And you could see her mother's face just, "What do you mean you really want to go again?" And she was like, I don't want to go. It was like this question is like, and I could see the beginning of the lie there. Like, I don't, rather than that thing, I am not excited. I am happy you're okay, but I feel sad that you were okay without me. And that's okay for both of you because that's validation on both sides. But if that makes you happy, I'm going to do my best because I'm an adult and I can handle my own emotions. You can't. You're a child. There is no possibility. There is no resource there. So that's what children do. Can't manage their emotions. So they rely on the adults to manage them. And the adults don't know how. So the adult says, "You are my happiness" to the child. And the child says, and there's a burden on their shoulder. But the biggest indicator and the only witness and the only home we have in our temple is the body. So the recommendation from me is turn to your body, sit with your body. First of all, figure out what you are feeling as an adult. And with that, validate it to everybody, to you first. Because once you validate it to you, there is a calmness inside you. Okay, I know what I'm feeling. I am not okay today. How do we deal with that? You're an adult, you can do that. And then if the child wants to pay, you can actually negotiate. Children are amazingly wise and understanding. But it's very important, your point of view, your starting point. If you don't know, they don't know. If you are all over the place, they will be all over the place. You don't have to open your mouth.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
it's so children always want to play. That's a given. How about you do both? You play for 5 minutes and then you go out. But are you capable of playing, really playing, not pretending to play? Because that's also a lie. So parents have the hardest job in the world. They have to be the adults. And adulting is hard.
True.
But we have not been taught growing up to manage our emotions. So that's why as adults, we behave like children. Because we don't know. That's why doing this work is so important. We go back and we grow up again. And we grow up to a level where we say, you know what? I can fully be an adult. Because now I recognize my reactions are the unfulfilled child who didn't get to play. So instead of me procrastinating, because I don't want to read that, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do the emails, I don't want to do the job because it's boring. I want to play. So instead of procrastinating or fighting over silly things, I have a responsibility. I'm an adult. I'm grown up, but I also want to play. So how do I manage that? I manage that by taking a break and playing for 10 minutes. And then I go back and I do the job.
I love that because it ultimately comes back to two things that I hear. Responsibility for our own feelings and also like how we communicate them out, but also this like deep honesty to say how we feel in that moment. So it's like really owning that moment with which we could navigate this. Like, I totally agree. And your parenting is a hard job if you want to do it right. How we can navigate this. And it might seem like little things that we are just describing, but from my own experience, I can say like it's very big. I remember some like of these like little tiny things out of my childhood that like deeply impressed me. Maybe traumatized it a big too much of a word, but in a sense, yes. So they really shook me. And from the outside, you would say like, well, nothing happened. But in the inside of the child, it really did. And maybe the parents didn't even notice in that moment. And I think like what you just described is really powerful because we're turning to the subtle energies really of the feeling and the energy of the body compared to the communication that might very well differ. And also it comes back to like the way we want to be treated. We should first treat ourselves and then we can treat our children. And while you spoke, like I smiled because I always say to my husband, the hardest thing about parenting is not even to like know what's right or wrong. I thought that would be like the thing. But it's like this, I'm reparenting myself in the process. And it's so hard to not just like instinctively react like my inner child, but to like do it different than I have observed it in my childhood. And it's like, I feel like the more people would do that kind of work before they had children, like how amazing would that be for the children and also for the parents, because then you don't need to clean up all that mess while having the child, but you might know before a little bit more about who you are, really, who you are, and how you react. And when you then react, I think it's much easier to discover if it's you or if it's an old program you have just running.
What you said is very important and it's very dear to me, self-awareness. Self-awareness is very difficult and it's a process. And the ability to respond instead of react comes from that.
Yeah.
So first step for me, I have actually, with my business partner, we have created a program for business for employees because we behave at home and in work the same. The most amazing thing, the first step is self-awareness, knowing what you want, knowing who you are, knowing where you start from. I'm doing this without judgment. I feel this in my body. So while I'm talking to you, I have something in my stomach that says maybe I'm afraid. You know, when you have conversation with managers or that, when you have when you were called to school with parents, and you know the teacher says something, and you're like, what's going to happen now? So you have that feeling in your body. Is that real or is that a projection? It takes some time to actually settle that. That's self-awareness. The next step is responsibility. Do you take full responsibility for everything you say, everything you do, everything you feel? Or you are just angry and the first thing you do is go shout at anybody else because you want to get away from that. Nobody likes to be afraid. Nobody likes to be angry. But there are those difficult conversations to be. Like, I am not okay with what's going on. Let's discuss. So that space you create between reaction and actual response contains this self-awareness and responsibility. And that's a very adult thing to do. And the body is the weakness as well. As long as you're remaining inside yourself, so you don't go out, right? You conserve your energy. You know what's going on inside you, and you are aware that whatever happens inside you, you tend to project. That's normal. So I'm angry. What do? I recognize first I'm angry, right? I warn the other people, guys, I'm angry today. I'm having a bad day. So be patient with me, right? So I create space for a different kind of communication. And this is also what we should teach our children. If you're angry, say you're angry, and I'm going to give you space. I'm going to hold you. So you are angry for a little while, and then when the emotion is done, you can change. But what do we do instead? We keep that and we bury that and we become. So certain breath, cheeks get red, chest pumps up, we tense up, our voices sound differently. And the people around us are, what's going on? Why are you angry? I'm angry. You see the light? And and then there is a conversation and they say something trigger you, and then you go for the throat. You go, And and that's when you're not in your adult self, you're in your child, because you cannot manage that. First of all, you didn't acknowledge you were angry. So you didn't know what was going on inside you. That's why therapy, different kind of therapies are so important. First of all, self-awareness. They get you back to how you are. And it's a learning process. It's slow. It's often painful, but it's so rewarding. Because now I know I am angry. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. You cannot have a discussion with me today. I am angry. I have my own reasons. But when I stop feeling that and I can have a normal dialogue, I will let you know and we'll continue this conversation. And that is hard to say. First of all, I acknowledge I'm angry, meaning I acknowledge I'm vulnerable. I'm opening up to what I'm feeling inside. I'm, throwing off the mask. I'm not perfect. I'm not always happy. I'm not always smiling. I'm not fine. How can you say that when we want the perfect, when we want to project that?
If we are in the people-pleasing mode, that's very hard to do also, because we might fear that we're rejecting or not pleasing the other one by saying well, hey, sorry, I cannot do that right now. My emotions need to calm down before we can continue having a conversation about it. That's as you said, a struggle, I guess, to, if you have already become aware of, to really communicate that out, because there's the next barrier you hit with doing something that is not expected or maybe not wanted by the person you're having that conversation with. At least in your head. Maybe it's in reality, if you do, there's much more understanding than you expected. But to go out and say oh, I'm vulnerable, I'm taking this mask off, and I might displease you in that moment, but I'm doing it to protect myself and to initially protect our relationship, because we can continue in a much more calm, authentic way when everything is back to normal again, instead of just reacting as a 5-year-old, because that's the time that you feel called to remember that moment.
Absolutely. And you do that 100 times a day.
Yeah.
So you bury that, whatever you're feeling, because you're fine. So your picture perfect, face, and whatever you're feeling, it could be, I don't know, disgust. You ate something that didn't agree with you. Fear. Throughout the day, we go through so many emotions, and we are pressured from all sides. There is family, there is work, there is driving. You never know. People are going crazy driving, especially in winter time or rain. Nobody can drive when it's raining. It's fabulous. So all that, and you are finding I'm fine, and all that gets buried. And what happens is that we are 80%, 70, 80% water. Water has memory, so we store everything inside. And of course, we are finite, so we have a certain amount of space we can fill. And the water inside us, holding all this memory, gets, and we overflow. And when we overflow, we go into overwhelm. It could translate to burnout. It could translate to disease. So our bodies start eating themselves out because they don't have space anymore. Because of the energy, and we do have vital energy, all the energy is going to function. So I need to wash, I need to bathe, I need to eat, I need to go to work.
Yeah.
And secondly, the largest part of the energy goes to keeping the lid on our emotions, because I'm fine. And at a certain point, it explodes.
Yeah.
And people in burnout cannot move. Usually, the body gives the signals. So you get headaches, you get bellyaches, you get, irregular bowel movement, you get aches and pains. So you tend to be very clumsy and hit into things. So you twist your knee, you hit your elbow, stuff like that. So you get messages, but who listens? Because I need to work, I need to do that. So we're very, we're planning our days. And if anything doesn't go to plan, we're lost. So we keep whatever is happening down. And then the body at a certain point says stop.
Yeah.
And then you get sick. So it's very important we find a way, and there are many, many ways to release that from the body. And it's first in the body, right? So it's first in the mind, because that's, overthinking and projection and so on and so forth. The programming steps in. So the mind says, fear, gives the message, fear, nothing new.
Yeah.
Because if you change, you die. Because change is hard, and that's the reality. So the mind is protecting us. Don't go there, because you don't know what's going to happen, so you might get hurt. Which is good when you're 5 years old, putting your fingers in the plug, but not so good when you are 35 going on a date.
Yeah.
Just, a random example.
Yeah.
But you need to juggle all that. And if you're not true to yourself, authentic, like you said, and if you don't admit, at least to yourself, you're not okay, nothing is going to happen. And change is necessary. This is how we're built. The moment we get too overwhelmed, the body shuts down. And when you're sick, guess what? All your effort goes into getting well. And then you start all over again.
I feel the survival mode that you touched on, like in almost everything you just said, is so big, because of when we talked about the suppressed emotions, and that for me, that is always a hint that there is like big survival mode going on later in life, in addition to the outside stress, because this is like all the stuff that you've like taken in but never released back out from all your upbringing. Maybe there's so much stored, and as you said, like when we cannot hold any more of that, and it like kind of is going to overflow, and we don't regulate our nervous systems, and we don't like become even conscious that we're in survival mode. We just feel stressed, burnout, maybe just tired, or have like aches and pains, as you describe, and we don't start telling our body like everything's fine, it's safe, you can rest, we can heal, we can like safely unearth these emotions, and I don't want to say deal with it, but in a lack of a better word, like look at them, deal with them, release them, and go on from there, so that we can learn to not burst into anger at the tiniest thing that is coming at us, because we're already like here, full up to here. So this survival mode, when it's starting that early, I think that's like a hard thing to think of, that we are kind of living in this from the inside and also from the outside permanently. Like, no wonder everyone's so unwell. There's so much disease mentally or physically. And I would love to touch regarding to this at what you said when we started the conversation, that like, because I agree on that too, that the body is showing us all the signs. One of my mentors said, regarding to body language, the soul is communicating how it feels inside the body, how it feels living inside the body through the way the body is formed. And that's what I've heard from your talking too. So would you say that there are like specific patterns that you can recognize here and there with specific traumata or specific happenings in the childhood?
Yes, there are body types. So our body develops according to our wounds. It's always very visible, and we have a combination, so it's not very straightforward. But you're right. Self-regulation is so important. And another one of my mentors said that if you don't allow yourself to cry, your body will do the crying for you. And for instance, this is what happened to me. I developed an autoimmune disease on the skin because I was never talking. I wasn't crying. I didn't cry for like 20 years unless I really hurt myself. And guess what? I would hurt myself a lot, so just I would cry. And I got very, very sick. And there is, for instance, my body type. I'm a bit solid, It's made of rage. Rage happens between 2 and 3 years old. It's connected to working. So when you're working, anger, not rage. My bad. So anger. And when it's the energy that makes you go up and run. And what do parents say when children are starting to, no, don't go there. No, stop. And you're angry. And you stop that. Or when you want to go and jump, don't do that. Don't relax, quiet, bam. And it shows on the body. So the body accumulates because it's rage, it's anger. So anger at a certain point, when it gets to poison, it turns to rage. Anger is good, anger is moving, rage is poisonous. And if you have too much rage inside, the produces to encapsulate it. So you become bigger and bigger. And think of that. Everybody says about eating and sport, which is true, but a lot of it is emotional. We do anger because we want to do things, and also because we don't want to get touched. So there are two things connected to weight, for instance. So you have a certain body type. Then you have, let's say, the model type, which is very long, very thin. Whatever they eat, it doesn't go anywhere. They practically eat their emotions as well. Because they're always hungry. Why? Because when they're very little, that type of wound happens very early. They didn't get enough affection. So it doesn't stick. Everything goes through them. It's very powerful. And it's not 100% accurate, but you can kind of figure out. And when you figure out, you can see how you can talk to that person. Because some people are, visual, and some people are talk the language of emotions. So some people can scream. For instance, I need to scream. One of the things that was hardest for me was to actually open my mouth and scream. First talk, not like talking, just grab things around, but actually talk, I want this, I need this. That was very hard for me. And then actually open my mouth and scream. So for me, fighting is a big thing. Because I would do anything to stop the fight. People pleasing. I've been there, done that. Right? So rather than going and screaming, stop, whatever, I just have a sense of humor and I diffuse the situation. It's not real. And my body says, you want to do that? Let's add some more weight. So this is how we're talking. This is the language of emotion. For some people, it's just crying, letting go. Letting tears fall is a big thing. Yeah. And it's going there. Because once you go there and once you touch that emotion, it gets transformed. Emotions are like waves. They don't last long. So they have a starting point, then they go up, and then they have a reach here, and then they go down. You cannot be happy for long, you cannot be upset for long, because it finishes. You will go down. But you have to go there, and somewhere we stop. And we don't stop once, we stop a million times. Like I was saying, with my type of body, between 2 and 3, I've been stopped. Every time I wanted to do something, somebody would tell me no. No. So, because I was tireless. 2, 3, no power whatsoever.
Of course.
But it showed up.
Yeah.
And then continually, because this is not a one-time event. I would say big T trauma, silly a little bit. It's, millions of things happening that create a neural pathway, that create a programming, that reprogram your brain to say, don't go there. And after you've been told no so many times, how can you go and do something new?
Yeah.
Because you've been taught, trained, domesticated, like a dog almost.
True.
No. And when you want to make that step, there is fear there, and the fear is paralyzing. It's actually paralyzing. So your body stops, freezes. It's automatic. How do you get past that? Talking to yourself? No, you have to go into the body a little bit. Talking to yourself helps. So there are a lot of therapies that can help, but you have to go into the body and determine, okay, I have to move that a little bit.
Mm.
And once you start to move, everything starts falling into place slowly.
Yeah. It's really powerful to like invite the body in. And I think that is something that I found missing for the last 20 years, at least where I grew up, is like it was always this like talking, rationalizing, which has its place. I don't want to downplay it, but inviting in the body and like seeing it as a dualistic system of healing is so powerful, and I think necessary to really fully heal, because what you just described I always had in my mind like this sentence I'm really believing in is like the body's protecting us. With everything you said, how bodies form, with your example of anger, it's protecting. It's like not working against you, even with every disease you have or every ache or pain or whatever. It's the body's way of saying like, well, if you can't cope with it, like I'm helping you. This is like my protection layer, maybe, or this is like my way of dealing with this situation. So it's actually like to honor the body and to do something for the body so that it can heal too, and not just the mind that like maybe reworks this trauma 100 times a day by you yourself telling you no unconsciously. Is maybe that's like the missing puzzle piece that I've searched for so long, to like really see it hand in hand. And I'm so glad that somatics are coming much more to the front within the last years, because I feel like there's really a key thing. We have neglected our bodies collectively by overworking, by like glorifying workaholism, for example, like just going overboard with drugs, with drinking, with like 1,000 examples, but it's always like neglecting the body. And what you just said a few times is like really feel into the body, because it's leading the way. It actually can tell you anything you need to know.
It's hard. It's hard because, when you're thinking, right, you create some sort of echo in the body as well. But physical sensation is sometimes overwhelming.
Yeah.
So how do you handle that? And addictions are a perfect way to go outside yourself. Workaholism is an addiction as well.
Yeah.
Anything can be an addiction. Talking can be an addiction. Some people have gone to therapy for years, but they don't go deeper.
Mhm.
Some people have solved issues, so it works up to a certain point. But unless you connect back to your body and you go through the cycle of emotion, the wave, to let it finish, because some emotions like fear need to be held like a child.
Yeah.
You need to just, hug yourself and say, you're safe, but it's okay, it's here. So breathe through it and it will, pass the wave, and then you can move. But it's paralyzing. You cannot do anything. And it's hard. I remember, anger, when it takes you over, you become like a bull, see red. You don't care what you're saying. You have no filter. You just want to hit things. Children throwing a tantrum.
Yeah.
Right? So managing that, dealing with that is hard. And you don't want to go there. Actually, you don't want to go angry. You don't want to feel fear, but it's there. What can you do? Well, what we do is close our eyes and hide in a corner, put a blanket over us, and say, "I'm gonna fall asleep. So when everything is over, I'm gonna come back." But in reality, we bury it inside our body, and there is no. So for all traumatic events, the best therapy are somatic. EMDR, tapping, TRE, tension trauma release exercises, which is the one I'm doing, dancing, exercise, whatever.
Yeah.
Everything is somatic. So PTSD, for PTSD, you need to move, whatever happens. Everything is connected to the body. And that source of somatic experiencing lady is a big wave. It comes back because you cannot deal. We are how was it? Not a spirit inside the body, but a body inside the spirit. So it is bigger than us, but the body is so important. And something like touches all the sometimes you need a whole team of people to help you to get out of wherever you went. Because when something traumatic happens, you jump from the body. You want to get up. It's survival.
Of course.
And when you come back, you don't come back fully here. You stop here. And you jump, and then you're here. And this place is called disease. This is. And what most of disease does takes you back here.
Actually, it's like maybe a cleaning mechanism for trauma or whatever. It's a kind of release, actually. So embracing pain, I think, is a really powerful thing to, again, not see it as something that is against you, but something that wants you to help to come you back. Because overall, we are incarnated in a physical body right now. So we neglecting our bodies on a big scale, it just cannot work. It's really necessary, I think, like to honor this connection. And there's this very famous quote, I think it was from Rumi. My mother said it to me like 1,000 times. Thing, like the longest way that we will travel is from the brain to the heart. And she means the heart in a loving way, which I not at all want to disagree on. But for our conversation, I feel like is coming back to the body and really honoring that the body is storing our emotions, good or bad, as much as the brain does. And to like really invite it into the healing work or invite it into our daily lives and not just neglecting it is really powerful.
Absolutely. You know that metaphor that the brain is a computer. The brain is actually the software, the software. And the whole thing is this hardware.
Yeah.
So software gets a lot of updates. The hardware, not so much. We only get one. We only get one, and we need to take care of it. And it's funny that we don't learn how to do that. So in childhood, we are very much connected to the body. You are a mother, so you know if your child gets angry, it gets angry from the tip of the head, top of the head to the top of the toes. It's absolutely fascinating. When children laugh with all their being, this is what makes them so beautiful.
Yeah.
But we lose them because we start learning to lie, we start disconnecting, and so on and so forth. When we get into teenager, we actually take revenge. And because we cannot take revenge against the world, we don't have the power yet. So we take revenge on ourselves. And this is when, a lot of addictions start happening, bad sexual decisions, chatting, and so on and so forth. It happened because we want to draw attention. It's like a cry for help. Nobody sees us, nobody listens. So we start taking revenge on ourselves. And that's very, very difficult to overcome. And then at a certain point, life, we do it, and then life happens and we get into a certain order. We go to work, we find a work, a family, we create a family, and then something happens. And usually, the birth of a child or a sickness that reminds us, okay, we have some unfinished business to take care of. Who am I?
Yeah.
Coming back to the
I
beginning of the
do start.
conversation. Because you didn't have the time to figure it out because you were so busy fighting everything and everyone. Uh, and that will be the life crisis, you know? After 30, in between 30 and 40, people have this epiphany. Who am I? I'm not okay the way I am. I need more. I want more. Something. And then we go nuts. Everybody does not understand what's going on. We derail and we start going to therapy, going to yoga, guru, India, traveling, finding ourselves, which is not very good. But in reality, the road is back within, and that's the hardest. So that's why I find inner child work so fascinating, because you reconnect back to who you were supposed to be if you didn't grow up. But backwards,
Yeah.
it's so, and it's wow. And you, in the end, you did some of the things you wanted to do. And some of the things you want to do as a teenager, you're still doing it. I wanted to save the world. Guess what? Right now, I'm a therapist.
You're on
You
your
know,
way to saving the
but I
world.
haven't one 5 years ago. But in my work before that, I trained people. So I still had part of that. So the soul shines through everything you're doing. And the soul does guide you, because even when you're lying, you feel something is wrong. Even if you're people pleasing, something inside you says, I'm not okay with it. If you're not listening, but something inside you says that. So we're not completely lost. There is a way. We just need to find the thread, the red thread that passes through it, and follow it back to us. It's not crazy. It's not. It's just that we need to discover who we are, really, to be okay with us. And then, first of all, you lose all your friends. because because
Process.
yeah, not all of them, but most of them, because you realize you don't match anymore. There's nothing to talk about.
No
And
resonation.
it's hard because those people have been with you for years, some of them. But it's not matching anymore. And you start talking about things like energy, protect your energy field, or inner child work, which is like, what? It doesn't bring money. Like, but you know what? It makes you happy. It's happy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's your purpose. And I think that's like the empowerment that we may have wished to have in the childhood, that we grant ourselves now, to say like, well, now I'm going to follow my purpose. Now I discover why I am really here, who I really am, and let the soul fully shine through, as you so beautifully said, and not just like have here a little ray and there a little ray that it kind of like accidentally find its way out of the deconditioning shell, but to really say like, now I'm taking back my power. I'm reclaiming who I became here to be.
Deconditioning. I love that word.
Me too.
The method I created with my partner is called the corporate deconditioning. And we tested it on some people. And they're like, what is deconditioning? Conditioning, Pavlov, dogs.
Everyone knows.
Yeah. And deconditioning. So that means you'll change your life. Yes. But that means you're going to leave corporations. Not necessarily. That means you're going to find out your purpose. And with the resources as an adult, you can actually go for what you want, full on. Because once you figure out what you want, you can actually design a strategy. Now you have the resources, you have the experience, you have the expertise, you know how to ask for help, and you can make a strategy and follow through and go for what you want. So it makes it easier.
Yeah.
But again, unless you're aware of what you want, how do you get there? So we follow this circle. We really go in circles, but the idea is not to go in circles, it's to go through a spiral. So you do a circle and you go through a spiral. Is that the wheel of fortune in tarot? Because we talked
We
about tarot
wanted to
as well.
talk about tarot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like the wheel of fortune, and the wheel of fortune. You need to find a way to break it. Every time it shows up in tarot, you need additional cards because you need to figure out a way to get out of it. You don't want to be trapped in the same circle. You want to go upwards. Yes, you repeat some things, but you go spiraling, and that's progress.
That's beautiful. Andrea, we need to do a second episode on tarot. I thought we would touch on it, but it wasn't happening. So I think we need to do another round. We really focus on the tarot because I think, like, in combination with the inner work, it is powerful. Really powerful.
Absolutely. And I learned to do a different type of tarot. So no, it's guesswork. It's called psychological tarot. So the arcanas are the stages of development of the child. You know, 1 year old, you're the magician. 2 years old, you're starting to very, very powerful. And from that, you actually start doing a therapy session or whatever you want to do. It shows you on the inside what you want to work on. Yeah, but for instance, because you pick up the devil card. Devil is fear. Okay, what's your fear? And then you delve deeper into a conversation about fear and what's the root of fear. And the root of fear may very well be when you were inside the womb. And that's very, very deep. And that's the kind of wound that never goes away. But if you know it, you know how to work around it to make the best use of your life. Yeah. Yes, you'll always be afraid, but you'll find a way to be successful and shine fear, despite of fear. Not because you don't have it. Yeah. Because you already know what's the cause. So, okay, I'm always afraid. Perfect. Now I know what I'm talking about. Instead of being this big unknown that's scary and you don't know what to do with yourself. And I think that's very powerful.
I totally agree. I think, like, the moment we are aware, we touched on that before, like the self-awareness is the first piece. And even if we don't can magically erase anything that is uncomfortable for us and we're not meant to, knowing is changing a lot. So that alone can be a powerful tool to have.
Absolutely.
Oh
Absolutely.
my God.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. I want to thank you so much. It was such a powerful, insightful conversation. I will wrap my head around this for very many hours. So, and I would love to do a second round where we talk about the tarot and the psychological tarot, because this sounds deeply fascinating as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I would love to. Yes, it's very powerful. And I was doing tarot reading before, but now after doing inner child work, the other side came. I was like, wow, the universe works in mysterious ways. And my message for everyone who's listening is that I wish you all the best in getting to know you. Because whoever you are absolutely beautiful and unique, and you are worth it. There's no question about it. You are definitely worth it. And if you have questions, just look inside.
We all know. We know. The soul knows.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, my dear. I will put your information in the caption below. So if people want to reach out, they can. And I'm really looking forward to having you on for a second episode very, very soon.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good evening.